great place to sit down and enjoy a presentation. We have our next presentation thanks to Surveyard. And if anybody is planning a deck or fence project like staining this summer, you will not want to miss this because Scott is here and he's got some great tips for you here this afternoon.
I'm realizing more and more that we are looking at our backyards differently than we have before. Because the backyard and the way we look at it is changing. It's becoming a place where it is a sanctuary. We go there after we're done at work. We want to put our feet up. We want to relax. We want solitude. We want peace. This is a place of refuge back in our backyard. It's changed. For right now, I want to give you 3 principles that to me are critical principles if you are thinking about stepping into that backyard, thinking about refreshing that deck, putting some stain on it. Here are 3 principles I want to give you this afternoon to have you think about and think through. The greater the saturation and penetration of your stain, the greater protection you will have on your deck itself or the fence. That pressure treated deck out there, the elements of the sun, you have UV rays that are coming in, they're taking their toll on that deck. You have mold and mildew that begins to form on that deck. You have thawing and freezing, and anybody who went through our last winter understands that there can be some major havoc wreaked on that pressure treated wood from the kind of winter that we had. When you put that pressure treated deck out there, it is on hostile territory. The war is on. The second principle that I want to give you this evening is not all stains are created equal. Now, Surveyard has been in the fence and deck business since 1973. And when you're trying to establish a name and a reputation for yourself, you're kind of really careful as to who you want to partner with. And one of the companies that Surveyard has partnered with is the Sanson EnviroStain Company. I have a lot of confidence in the Sanson stain product. I love the fact that they are environmentally friendly. I love the fact that they are a water-based stain. How soon after I put my pressure-treated deck down can I stain it? My recommendation is that you move more toward it being 30 days, maybe more like 3 months. Maybe let it season a little bit longer. Because of the amount of humidity that we experience, give that wood a chance to weather a bit. Because you want that stain to be able to go down inside those grains and bond with what's going on in the wood. When you begin to apply an oil-based stain into your wood, what happens is you've got to be able to have your wood in a place where it's able to breathe. That moisture has to be released and go inside. What happens with an oil-based stain is it goes inside the wood and then traps the moisture inside the wood. It's not able to breathe. And what happens when that moisture is trapped inside the wood is it begins to increase deterioration long before it should. And so for me personally, I would steer away from an oil-based stain. I would lean more into a water-based stain. I love the fact that a water-based stain is an easy cleanup. The third principle that I would put for you as you're considering staining your deck is that the most critical part of your staining project, the most critical part, is preparation. And you can see the difference between what no prep happens and when you do prep for the wood in which you want to apply the stain. Again, hear me on this. This is very crucial. Your battle with staining will be won or lost on preparation. Do not cut corners on preparation. I would go out and I would sand your deck. This would be the first thing I would do for proper preparation. Sand the deck. Now, you're going to hear this repeated from me over and over again. I am a huge fan of sanding. Sand, 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 sand. I love sanding. You got to sand. And I'm going to prove to you why sanding is important, even if you say to me, but it's a new deck. I have a piece of board here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a little bit of a sand to this wood. So on one side of the wood, it is sanded. On the other side of the wood, there is no sanding that's taking place, okay? Now, I need a volunteer to come up and basically eyewitness what I'm doing here. So you know I'm not trying to pull anything over on you. Do I have a volunteer? Okay, so you can begin to see that on the sanded side of the wood, the drop of water is beginning to penetrate and go into the wood. Okay, what's happening on the other side?
I don't see very much absorption.
There is a very tiny bit of absorption on the unsanded side. What I would recommend that you do is that you get a random orbital sander. You would take 60 to 80 grit sandpaper, and you would give that deck a good sanding before you put the stain on. Because once you use a high pressure water on your deck, it begins to raise the grains up. You begin to get this, I'll call it fur, that begins to stick up off your deck. Not very comfortable for your feet. So once you take a power washer, a high pressure power washer, and you apply that to your deck, you're going to want to break out that sander once it's dry, and you're going to want to sand that deck. You're then going to take, once it's sanded, you're then going to take your blower or your shop vac, remove that off of your deck, and then take your stain, take your Sanson deck product, and put 1 or 2 coats on your Sanson deck product. So Uncle Ralph is saying that on the sanded side, this water is beginning to really penetrate, it's beginning to branch out, it's beginning to sink into the wood. On the other side? It's basically looking the same way as when I put it on.
So everybody, big round of applause for Scott from Serviyard. Thank you so much today. And yes, he will be around here for a few minutes if you have any questions for him for sure.